Would you please stand and join me in the invocation? Lord, we come before you this evening with thankful hearts, for we are a blessed community with many opportunities to grow and shine. We are grateful for the energy in the community and within the government that escalates with the coming of the warm weather and sunny days. Help us to channel these energies into fuel to elevate our citizens, our community, and our nation. As always, we seek your divine guidance as we convene tonight to conduct the business of our beloved community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Before we go any further with any modifications to the agenda, I'd like to take this moment for us, take a moment of silence, because this past week we lost an individual who was really a part of this community, a stalwart in this community, somebody who was very much liked in this community, and who passed this past week. His funeral was today, and that is former County Commissioner Ed Depew. Let's take a moment of silence to recognize that. Thank you very much. Madam City Manager, are there any agenda modifications?
We have two mods on this evening's agenda, Mr. Mayor. One addition, which is item number 5.06, presentation of a proclamation recognizing April 25th, 2013 as Sexual Assault Awareness Day, added by the mayor. And one deletion, 11.01, approval of a resolution supporting the Fixed Gun Checks Act and other measures to reduce gun violence. This item was deleted by the mayor and will come back to the commission at some point.
Let me address that very quickly. Many of you know I'm a longtime member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and I do support the resolution itself that was on the agenda, and which only urges Congress to adopt reasonable approaches to our gun safety. And as expected, my office received a number of calls, emails about this agenda item. And while the introduction of this particular matter or item followed the normal time frame, a number of people have expressed a desire, if you will, that we postpone any action on this. In addition to that, I received a couple of phone calls today, and there was some confusion. Some people thought we were passing an ordinance. This is not an ordinance. We're not proposing a law. And I want to make that clear. And that confusion out there is really very, very important for us to clear up. So that's why we're going to defer action until a later date. And this is not an ordinance to restrict anybody's gun rights. This is a resolution. Okay? Thank you. I read in today's paper is the anniversary in the liberation of the Buchenwald concentration camp, liberated at the close of World War II in 1945. I make this point of observation on the heels of the North Florida stand down, which occurred this past weekend. The city was a proud sponsor of that particular event, and as a veteran myself, I realize how important veterans are to this community. So today we do have a proclamation recognizing as a day of remembrance for the victims of the Holocaust. With Barbara Goldstein, founder and chair of the Holocaust Education Research Council, and Rita Blank, co-chair, please join me at the podium. It gives me honor to present this proclamation on behalf of the city of Tallahassee, because we recognize the lasting stark effect that the Holocaust has had on many Jewish Americans and their families, especially here in the city of Tallahassee, in our community, and of course throughout America and Europe. Therefore, I would like to present this proclamation, and it reads as follows. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaboration between 1933 and 1945, and whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments, and whereas the days of remembrance have been set aside for the people of the city of Tallahassee to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as reflect on the need for respect for all peoples. And whereas pursuant to an act of Congress, Public Law 96-388, October 7, 1980, the United States Holocaust Memorial Council designates the days of remembrance of the victims of the Holocaust to be Sunday, April 7th through Sunday, April 14th, including the Day of Remembrance known as Yom HaShoah, April 8, 2013. Now, therefore, I, John R. Marks III, by the Mayor of Tallahassee, do hereby proclaim this week, Sunday, April 7th through Sunday, April 14, 2013, as days of remembrance, in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, and in honor of the survivors, as well as the rescuers and liberators, and further proclaim that we, as citizens of the city of Tallahassee, should work toward promoting human dignity and confront hate whenever and wherever it occurs. Thank you very much. Thank you. Before we end, I know Commissioner Ziffer has requested that he
just for a moment
remarks. Go right ahead.
Because I don't want it to go unsaid. Both Barbara Goldstein and Rita Blank are treasures in our community. When they started the council a few years ago, they had a mission, and you know, a lot of people start organizations and they have high hopes, but what they have done when it comes to providing educational opportunities and the information in our schools, because really we have to start with the young people. We start with, because they're the ones that may not have heard of this or aware of it, and recognize the need to never forget not only what happened in the Holocaust, but yet things like this still persist in our society and our world today, and that we have to make every effort possible for them not to occur. And these two individuals, as I said, are absolute treasures, and I wanted to thank them for everything they do every single day, and particularly what they do for our school children. Thank you from certainly this commission, but from this city for everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita. First of all, while Rita comes back up, I just want to say a few words too. A few years back, I visited Israel, the Holy Land, Holy City, Jerusalem. And as a part of that particular event and trip, I visited the Holocaust Museum. And I can tell you, it really is a moving, very, very moving experience. And I would encourage anybody who takes the opportunity to go to Israel, please. It is a wonderful, beautiful facility. And it's very, very touching when you go in there and see what happened during the Holocaust. So thank you again for everything. Okay, we're going to get a quick picture.
Oh, where's the picture?
Right there. Melissa.
I was trying to send the ones I'd already taken.
So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You want to say something?
I don't know what to say. Gilda, I don't know what to say.
Well, that's a first.
I want to thank everybody and thank the mayor and the commissioners and for supporting this, and we'll keep doing what we're doing because it's really important. Rita, you can say something.
Thank you. The Holocaust is very special and close to our hearts, to Barbara and me, because our parents are both survivors, or all four are survivors of the Holocaust. So we really appreciate so much that it is very special to all of you too, and thank you to everybody for being here with us today and making it a special day for us and for the Holocaust Education Resource Council. Thanks.
Can I say one more thing? As our ongoing mission, if anybody would like to help us, we're more than happy. Come up and see us, and we'd love to have you join us at our next program. Thank you.
Before we have Commissioner Ziffer, Next presentation, recognition or recognizing the weekend of April 13th through 14, 2013 as a weekend of Italian culture. Do we have individuals here in the audience that would like to come up here? I think we do. Elizabeth Ricci, Shelley Duke, please join me, and anybody else who claims their Italian heritage. Please join us. The city of Tallahassee is indeed a very diverse community. This is one of the characteristics that I've loved most about our city. As mayor, I'm pleased to present this proclamation to Ms. Ricci and where's Paloma? Where are they? Oh, they're still over there? Perfect. As mayor, I'm pleased to present this proclamation to Ms. Ricci, Ms. Duke, and others in honor of this upcoming weekend entitled A Weekend of Italian Culture. Also, please tell us some of the details surrounding this upcoming event in Tallahassee, if you will. What's happening?
I'm shocked that you would ask. I'm happy to tell you. It's this weekend at the Car Museum. Thank you, Mayor Marks and the Commission. I really appreciate the honor, as do all of us here from the Italian community and the consular representative. Our festival is this weekend. Our mission is to promote and enjoy Italian culture in Florida's capital. We'll be at the Car Museum Saturday and Sunday, and you'll learn a lot about our culture and the beautiful things that it represents. Thank you very much.
And I got to read the proclamation bit here, okay? Let me do that. Whereas the city of Tallahassee is honored to join the Italian Embassy in Washington, D.C. and our citizens in celebrating the 2013 Year of Italian Culture. And whereas Italian-American cultural events and programs venerating Italian history, culture, cuisine, and the many significant contributions of Italians, Italian-Americans, and Italian culture will take place at the 3rd Annual Tallahassee Italian Family Festa, being held April 13 and 14, 2013, for the people of all cultures to enjoy, whereas the Tallahassee City Commission recognizes Elizabeth Ricci and Shelley Duke, two Italian-Americans whose, over here, I'm sorry, Shelley, two Italian-Americans whose creativity, intelligence, and perseverance have enriched Florida's capital by founding and successfully promoting the Italian Family Festa. Now, therefore, I, John R. Marks, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tallahassee, do hereby proclaim April 13 and 14, 2013 as Weekend of Italian Culture. Thank you all so very, very much for doing this.
Grazie.
Grazie. Okay, she told me I got to be out there. I'll be out there this weekend. All right. Will Cynthia Barber and members of the Environmental Policy and Energy Resources Department with the City of Tallahassee, along with Bob Ballard, Executive Director of the Wakulla Environmental Institute, Community College, please come to the podium, okay? The very goal of Earth Day is to stimulate sustainability and environmental awareness of our most precious natural resources. And as mayor, I would like to thank our EPER department and the various organizations and institutions throughout this city for promoting the type of green initiatives that make our community strong and sustainable. On behalf of the City Commission, I would like to present this proclamation celebrating Earth Day, and the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas April 22nd, 2013 marks the 43rd Earth Day, which began on April 22nd, 1970, with the goal of inspiring environmental awareness and encouraging the conservation, protection, and appreciation of our nation's natural resources. Whereas the city of Tallahassee was the first city to be certified as a green city at the gold level by the Florida Green Building Coalition. I pause because I want y'all to know we were the first, okay? Whereas the city of Tallahassee implements many sustainability-related initiatives such as Think About Personal Pollution, Commissioner, Think About Personal, Get There Green, Neighborhood Reach. Where's Mr. Barber? Raise your hand. That's our Neighborhood Reach guy. And Think Before You Throw, where does it go? And many other whereases I could put in here, okay? And whereas the city of Tallahassee is in partnership with Tallahassee Community College has chosen to observe Earth Day 2013 with an event, The Business of Green, Innovating for Our Economy and the Environment, a Green Business Expo that will showcase local green businesses and their contributions to the local community and economy. Now, therefore, I, John R. Marks, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tallahassee, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2013, Tallahassee Earth Day. Thank you. Cynthia, you want to say a few words briefly about it?
Actually, in the essence of time, I'm going to.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Bob Ballard with the Wakulla Environmental Institute. I'm the new Executive Director, hey, Commissioner. On behalf of President Murdaugh, we're so excited to be partnering with the city. We love partnering with the city, and he wanted me to make sure I mentioned that because you guys have been great partners with TCC, and I hope to be great partners as well with the Wakulla Environmental Institute. I'm going to give a little plug, if I may, Mr. Mayor. On Monday, we're going through our groundbreaking in Wakulla County for our first building at the Wakulla Environmental Institute, and you're all invited. We'd love to have you there at 5 o'clock. I'm sorry?
Is that the 4-hour tour?
No, it is not. But anyway, you're all welcome to come, and we'd love to have you, and we want to continue to be partners wherever we can because you guys are great. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We will continue our track record in this regard. I can guarantee you that as long as Cynthia Barber is in charge, and she is. Rob McGarrett, General Manager of the city's electric department, along with the electric department employees Greg Osborne, Sherwin Smith, please join me at the podium. The American Public Power Association's Reliable Public Power Provider program recognizes public power utilities for operating their electric systems in a safe, reliable, and efficient manner. On March 25th at the APPA's Engineering and Operations Technical Conference, Tallahassee was recognized with the RP3 Platinum Award and designation. I'm proud because the APPA's RP3 Platinum designation further confirms that the city is committed to operating our electric utility in a safe, reliable, and efficient manner. I want to thank Rob for your leadership. And thank you for the many employees, and we have some great employees in our electric utility department, for their diligent work and to ensure that the electric department remains the #1 public utility in America. Thank you. I think it's an award. You got the award? Here's the award. Come on up here. Who's going to say, Rob? That's great.
Mayor and commissioners and city manager, we appreciate the support and leadership y'all give us. This is clearly a team effort, starting with your leadership and support all the way down through the entire employee team within utilities that allows us to serve our customers in the manner that we do. I also want to recognize Greg. He's our staff member who took the lead in putting together all the information that APPA required us to submit for this award. This is the 4th consecutive platinum designation we've gotten on this. So it's a long-term commitment that the city's made, and we appreciate the support in allowing us to do that for our customers.
Thank you. The only problem with that is what's above platinum, Rob? I don't know. Don't worry about it. We'll see. Okay. Ms. Anita Odom, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Florida, and Zachary Odom, Director of Governor's Office of Adoption
Zach Gibson.
and Child Protection. Would y'all join me? What is it? Okay, that's not my fault. That's his fault. Good to see you. Okay, Zach Gibson.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, anyone that knows me knows that I love children. And you saw Paloma here earlier. They are our leaders of tomorrow, and quite honestly, they are just plain fun to be around. Though I and many here today love children, the reality is that many children are abused and many are neglected. As we recognize Child Abuse Prevention Month, I encourage all citizens to not only think about the livelihood of your children and grandchildren, but focus on all children because they all are in need of attention and care. And in recognition of this month, I'm glad to present this proclamation. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Florida's future prosperity depends on nurturing the healthy development of more than 4 million children currently living, growing, and learning within our diverse communities, Whereas the abuse and neglect of children can cause severe, costly, and lifelong problems affecting all of society, including physical and mental health problems, school failure, criminal behavior. Whereas individuals, businesses, schools, and faith-based and community organizations must make children a top priority and take action to support the physical and social, emotional, and educational development of the competency of all children. And whereas during the month of April, the Florida Department of Children and Families, in collaboration with Prevent Child Abuse Florida, will engage in communities throughout Florida in a coordinated effort to prevent child abuse and neglect by promoting awareness of healthy child development, positive parenting experiences and practices, and types of concrete support families need within their communities. Now, therefore, I, John R. Marks, Mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby proclaim April 2013 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Tallahassee, and urge all citizens to engage in activities whose purpose is to strengthen families and communities to provide the optimal environment for healthy child development. Thank you all very much. You want to say something here?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission. On behalf of our Governor, Secretary David Wilkins with the Department of Children and Families, and all of our state agency leaders, we really appreciate your support in raising awareness for Child Abuse Prevention Month. You know, it's unfortunate, but every day I read stories of some form of abuse that occurs to our children, and we are working with our partners throughout the state, with various cities, counties, associations to help and raise awareness during this month, but also to really look to continue the momentum throughout the course of the year, because our children are our future. We need to protect them, and we need to seek opportunities of what we can do to ensure that families are strong, they're safe, they're stable, and there's nurturing that is involved as well. So thank you all very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for all you did. Thank you. Well, Sandra Collins, Director of You Heard My Cry Foundation, along with Reverend Stanley Walker. Reverend here? I didn't see him. Stanley Walker Jr., Rosie Cabrera, Minister Jabari Paul, Taj Hall, Jawah Hall. Please join me at the podium. Are they here? Come on. Well, they all aren't here, but some of them are. Come on, stand right by me. Sexual Assault Awareness Day is an opportunity to educate citizens on the importance of standing up to this heinous and inexcusable crime. And I commend you all for coming together and addressing this very important issue. Therefore, in recognition of this day, I'm honored to present this proclamation, and the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas no one person, organization, agency, or community can eliminate sexual assault on their own, we must work together to educate our entire population about what can be done to prevent sexual assault, support victims, survivors, and their significant others, and increase support for agencies providing services to victims and survivors. And whereas I Heard Your Cry Foundation has led the way in Tallahassee and surrounding counties in addressing sexual assault by support services to victims and survivors and their significant others. And whereas I Heard Your Cry Foundation requests public support and assistance as it continues its effort to bring real hope for freeing Tallahassee from the tragedy of sexual violence, to create a future where all women, men, and children can live free from such violence and exploitation. Now, therefore, I, John R. Marks, by the power vested in me as Mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2013 as Sexual Assault Awareness Day. And I want to thank you all for what you are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank God, most of all, because that's how I got here. And the mayor, I thank you for honoring the victims of sexual assault, because they become a darkened face to where you place you never get past. You heal, but everywhere you go, you're marked. And so I Heard Your Cry Foundation was founded out of the Bible spiritually when the children was led out of Egypt into the land of promise. And I Heard Your Cry Foundation has been in Tallahassee for about 17 years, but it's been a one-woman show, along with the prayers of my pastor, Stanley Walker. So I just want to thank everybody here in the city of Tallahassee, the mayor, and Miss Cynthia Barber, because she has been a a shoulder for me to cry on sometime when I got frustrated. And I just want to thank my supporters who have joined me in this effort. It's coming up on April the 25th. We are having an event at Tabernacle at 6:30 to bring sexual violence awareness. One of our speakers are here in the audience, and she has a foundation, also a Tamar Foundation. So we ask for your support, your prayers, and continue to, if you see someone or hear someone being sexually assaulted, if you cannot know what the words to offer to them, just give them a hug and say, we've heard your cry.
Thank you so very, very much. Any additional comments?
Okay, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Nancy Miller also helped in making this happen today, so I really want to thank you and forgive me for forgetting about you. My heart opens to you, and thank you for hearing my cry as well. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. Madam City Manager, the next item, please.
The next item is item number 7, which is acceptance of the fiscal year 2012 comprehensive annual financial report, and the chair of our audit committee, Mr. Paul Brown, is going to make that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioners, Madam Manager. My name is Paul Brown. I'm the chairman of the Citizens Audit Committee. The audit committee met several weeks ago with representatives from the external auditing firm of Carr, Riggs & Ingram, along with the city's accounting services division and the city's internal audit staff to consider the September 30th comprehensive annual financial report for the city of Tallahassee. Carr, Riggs & Ingram issued an unqualified opinion on the financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate discretely presented component unit of the city. In addition, the auditors issued an unqualified report on the major federal and state project grant funds. There were a couple of issues noted during the audit on internal controls over financial reporting and internal control over compliance applicable to the federal and state programs during that audit. The audit committee discussed all the above issues with all the parties and is satisfied with the city's response to correct the issues going forward. And as a result, the audit committee accepted the comprehensive annual financial report and is presenting it to the commission today for your approval.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Move approval.
I got a quick question.
Go right ahead.
Of staff, just whenever.
It's properly moved in second at this point. Go ahead.
I noticed that on the 2 areas that were identified that both of those were more of an accounting nature than anything else. I wanted to make sure of that. Would this affect in any way the city's bond ratings?
No, sir. As indicated in the report, they relate to our financial reporting and how expenditures were classified and reported in the report. In all likelihood, normally what happens with these kind of issues is when any kind of, and I've talked with Jim Cook about this, is your granting agencies and all your bond rating agencies are really going to be looking at how do we respond to it, do we deal with the issue, and do we take care of the issue going forward. As indicated in the report, we already have action plans as has to deal with these issues, and we've already initiated those processes.
And there were no exceptions regarding the expenditure of city funds?
No, there's no indication in any of these reports, in any of these findings, that there was any indication that city funds were spent incorrectly.
And do we still receive an unqualified opinion on our financial statements?
Yes, sir. We still receive that because when the auditors brought to our attention these corrections that needed to be made, we made those corrections in the report, so they are materially stated correctly.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Commissioner?
Thank you, sir.
Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the Audit Committee for everything that you do for us. Your input is invaluable, and I know if you put a price tag on it, we'd all be impressed with the number. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your service. We need it, and we have to have it, and you're doing a great job. Thank you. So.
Appreciate it.
Next item.
We have a motion and second, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Next item.
The next item is citizen input on agenda items, Mr. Mayor.
Have any input?
We have one speaker on item 1304, Erwin Jackson. That's the only speaker. Item 1304 is the update on residential usage of Florida sales tax exemption discussion.
Okay.
Commissioners, Erwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. At our last City Commission meeting, I stated that the city was charging local businesses sales taxes on the purchase of electricity, even though these businesses were exempt by state law. Commissioner Maddox tried to convince the residents that the statements that I were making were in fact not factual. However, the facts I presented last week were repeatedly confirmed this week by both state and city employees. The facts are simple. The city has been aware of dozens of sales tax exemptions for local businesses and nonprofit organizations for over a decade. They're including this manual that's available at the city. Secondly, thousands of businesses are eligible for these tax savings. Third, the city has failed to notify these businesses directly of this tax savings and have failed to put this information and make it available on the city website. The city's excuse for not doing this and notifying these businesses is their claim that it's simply not their responsibility. The result of their inaction is local businesses are being overcharged hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales taxes. In my case, the city overcharged me $22,000 over 11 years. Once this practice was exposed, they have returned the excess tax for only 3 years, $5,400, and kept the balance. Why the city has remained silent about this tax savings opportunity for local businesses is unknown. In contrast, Bert Hartsfield collects property taxes for city residents. Mr. Hartsfield notifies all property owners by mail and television of available state tax exemptions, and encourages the citizens to utilize these exemptions. I'm asking the Commission to direct staff to begin an educational campaign with business and nonprofit organizations to ensure that all qualified groups take advantage of these sales tax exemptions. All businesses and nonprofit organizations should be informed of these tax exemptions. Inserts should be placed in utility bills, referring people to the website that needs to be put together. And if you need assistance, go to Florida Power and just download theirs. It's very comprehensive. And finally, all new businesses and nonprofits should be given information about these exemptions when they pay a deposit for utility services. This minimal effort by the city will result in a huge economic impact for our local businesses and nonprofit organizations. I appreciate your time, and I'm available to work with you, utility department, in putting together this educational format. Thank you so much.
Any more speakers?
That's the only speaker at this time. Obviously, there's unattended speakers at the end of the meeting. I don't have any of those at this point either, though.
All right.
We're on consent, Mr. Mayor.
Consent?
Move it.
Properly moved and second. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Next item.
Next item is 13.01, approval of ranking of vendors and authorization to negotiate contract for Neighborhood Reach Field Implementation Services. And Commissioners, in December of 2010, the city launched a 2-year pilot demand-side management program called REACH. You're very familiar with it. REACH provides energy assistance to residential customers using a whole neighborhood door-to-door delivery strategy. Since that time in 2010, the REACH field team has been successful in assessing more than 3,300 homes in our community and installing more than 100,000 weatherization measures. We estimate that customers have saved 6.5 million kilowatt hours each year, which is enough energy to power 500 new homes in Tallahassee each year. REACH uses a contractor supervised by city staff to provide field services to customers, and as the pilot program came to a close, staff issued an RFP for the continuation of that field implementation service in support of the REACH program. This agenda item is to request Commission approval of the Selection Committee ranking and authorization to negotiate a contract with the top-ranked firm. Energy Services Director David Byrne is here to answer any questions that you might have on this.
I'll move the item.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Commissioner Miller.
Mayor, I just need to make sure that I advise the Commission that I had concerns about voting on this item because I previously was an owner of the of Ursteps, who has been selected by the committee, and I have divested myself of those interests as soon as I was elected to get out of the way so that they could do business in any way that they needed to. And I've discussed this with the city attorney, but I want to get it on record, and I would like to say, Mr. Shelley, would you please give us your advice on my ability to vote on this item?
I've met with Commissioner Miller, and we've discussed this issue at length. She has divested herself of any financial interest in Earth Steps, which is a top-ranked firm. No family member has any financial interest in there or has any interest in the firm since 2011. I've advised her that under Florida law, she does not have a conflict as required, as defined in Florida Statute 112. I've also advised her that she has an obligation under Florida Statute 286.012 to vote on this issue if, in fact, she does not have a conflict. And in my opinion, she does not have a conflict and is required to vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
You mentioned Delmas Barber earlier. I just wanted to acknowledge, Delmas goes around town touting himself the unofficial mayor of the city, giving away, no, I'm joking. Yes. No, in all seriousness, Delmas, you and the staff, Earth Steps and so on and so forth have done, I mean, Mayor, you've acknowledged us having won, in large part, awards nationally, in part because of the innovation of this program. It's touched every part of our city and of our community, and it's not only is it providing services into individual homes and consulting businesses, and I don't mean to neglect the staff, obviously, who helps employ Delmas and lead this program, but your name and your face is well associated with the quality of work that's happening in the community. So to you and to the staff, thank you for your leadership and your innovation on the project. Not only are you helping individual homeowners, but you're helping us prevent having to build new electric power generating facilities, and that's a huge cost savings to the entire city.
Thank you. Commissioner, you got more?
Well, I just, on that note, I'd like to recognize Linda Nelson, who is the CEO of Earth Steps, and thank her for all the work that Earth Steps has also done in partnership with Delmas and staff. I'd like to give you guys a big hooray, too. We have won not just one, but several awards based on this. The work that you all have done, that goes for utilities marketing. I see Sandy Manning sitting in the back room. So this is just something to really be proud of, and it's gotten national recognition, so congratulations.
We got the City Livability Award from the U.S. Conference of Mayors as a result of this program, and we're also named the #1 public utility in the nation, and due to this program, partly due to this program as well. So it is well received, it is outstanding, and our citizens really love it. So we got a motion.
The only thing I want to say is beyond awards, the work that you've done over the last couple of years has significantly, I'm sure, has significantly changed the lives of a lot of our citizens because of being able to go into their properties and improve them. And so for that, thank you very much. But yeah, I think Commissioner Gillum's right. Delmas, I'm not sure you've ever met anybody you didn't like or didn't like you. You're just one of those people. So thank you, and staff, but particularly thank you for all you do.
And he was the mayor long before John Mark. Before there was a Neighborhood Reach program, he was still the mayor.
And Delmas taught me everything I know.
Yeah.
He's a good man. He really is. Thank you so much. We got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
It's approved unanimously. Next item.
Next item is 13.02, approval of Capital Region Transportation Planning Agency interlocal agreement.
Move the item.
Second.
Properly moved and second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Next item.
Item number 13.03 is the next item, and this is EPER's Environmental Outreach Program. Commissioners, this year, the City and Tallahassee Community College are partnering to commemorate Earth Day by co-hosting a Green Business Expo entitled The Business of Green, Innovating for the Economy and the Environment. This event will take place on April 23rd on the TCC campus. One of the components of the event is a poster competition for high school and college students, the Creating Green, Innovating for the Economy and Environment poster competition. Students have been invited to present creative business solutions in the form of a poster. Several area businesses have contributed financial support for this contest and will have representatives there serving as judges at the event. This agenda item is actually seeking your approval to spend the funds and appropriate the funds donated by the sponsors in order to support the contest. Cynthia Barber is here if you have any questions on this item.
Move the item.
Second.
Properly moved and second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Next item.
The next item is 13.04, update on residential usage Florida sales tax exemption discussion. This is coming back to you, Commissioners, from the March 27th, 2013 City Commission meeting. You've already received a couple of emails briefing you on this item, but it is a follow-up to the item that was raised at the meeting. Reese Gold from the Utility Business and Customer Service Department is here to walk you through a fairly complicated issue. Mr. Jackson brought it up earlier, and I think that there are some issues there that do need to be discussed in detail. Reese will do that at this time.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we do want to kind of go through the process itself. Obviously, this issue came up. It involves sales tax. We are the collection agent for the Department of Revenue in this particular element of, this particular item. And so we wanted to share some information about the process, how it works, who pays sales tax, the city's role in that, and a general overview of the process. Florida law, Chapter 212, specifically requires that the city act as the agent for the Department of Revenue and collect and remit Florida sales tax each month. The sales tax is applicable to electricity and natural gas sales that the utility makes, along with some other ancillary sales that may happen within the city itself, but in this particular question, it relates to electric and natural gas sales. The sales tax is not applicable to residential customers, those customers that receive service via residential tariffs, so the households and that we live in, the homes in Tallahassee, are not assessed sales tax in accordance with the state statutes. The city is required to collect sales tax on all commercial transactions. And we do that unless there is an exemption. And I'm going to get to that point and tell you the nature of the exemptions. But by default, all commercial transactions are sales taxable. Each month, the city collects the sales tax and then remits it to the Department of Revenue. It was mentioned earlier by Dr. Jackson that in the event there was a refund or taxes collected, that the city retained the ownership of those dollars or benefited from those. I must indicate very clearly that that's not the case. All the dollars collected by way of the sales tax as the collection agent are collected and then passed through to the Department of Revenue. There's no analysis that's done that says this is the city's share, the city should keep this money. It simply is a pass-through. We are the collection agent. It's passed on to the Department of Revenue.
Can we underline that fact? But go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'll speak just briefly about the exemptions. I'm going to list each one so you can have a picture, and then I'd like to step through each one because they are somewhat detailed and individual or unique in the case of the account holders, businesses, or owners. As I mentioned before, residential customers do not pay the sales tax. This is a tax that has to be applied to commercial sales. And the exemptions are three parts in the city of Tallahassee, and those are businesses and organizations with a valid Florida Consumer Certificate of Exemption. So those are like non-for-profit entities that actually receive a certificate, and when they make purchases, they're tax exempt. And I'll provide a little more detail about that in a moment. As well as sales of electricity and steam to manufacturers. So if you're manufacturing a product, there's some processing element in here too, and again, I'll provide more detail on that one. You may be exempt. It's a little more detailed than that, but that's the second category. And finally, the third category are sales of electricity and natural gas exclusively for residential purposes, but billed under a commercial rate. So I mentioned earlier that residential customers don't pay sales tax. Commercial customers that operate a venture with a residential purpose do pay sales tax. There's an exemption, meter by meter, if it is residential use only, that may be declared by the owner, and I'll come back to that one as well. Let me start and go quickly over the Consumer Certificate of Exemption. This is something that I think many of our customers, in fact, we probably all are familiar with, that is a not-for-profit, like a 501c3 type organization. They'll get a tax certificate as they make purchases on behalf of that business. They are not tax exempt. They provide us with a certificate. The certificate has a life of 5 years and must be renewed by that business every 5 years and represented to the vendor, in our case, to the utility.
And that certificate is issued by whom?
The Department of Revenue.
Not the City of Tallahassee?
No, sir. Thank you, sir. The certificate is issued by the Department of Revenue, and the exchange is between that business and the Department of Revenue. We have a process as those certificates begin to expire. We know the date of the expiration. We're obligated to charge sales tax if it expires and we do not have a renewed certificate. So we notify the customers in advance in writing and may have to follow up with a phone call just to remind them if we don't have that renewed certificate. It's advised on the certificate itself that the holder of the certificate should provide it to all vendors and suppliers. And that typically happens at the time of account intake. So when we're setting up the account for a new business or new service, that's typically when the customer will provide that information to us. Most times the circumstances of that business don't change. They are what they are when they begin. They provide us a certificate and they have the exemption moving forward to be renewed every 5 years.
Reese, let me ask this question. You say when the certificate begins to expire, we notify?
Yes, sir.
Is that do we have to do that?
No, sir. We just find it as a customer service, we do that. And sometimes that written notification is not acted upon. You might imagine there's a wide range of businesses that have these certificates, big and small. Some of them, it may not be their focus of their business. And we find it helpful to remind them. And actually, the city auditor did an audit of our program many years ago and helped us kind of strengthen that process. We obviously routinely look at the programs that we have and make sure we're applying them correctly. In this case, this is a serious program. This is one that the city takes quite a bit of obligation in terms of acting as the collection agent for the Department of Revenue and remitting the sales tax.
So we're taking an extra step on behalf of our citizens.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The second category I'll go a little more in depth to is sales of electricity and steam to manufacturers. Steam is not relevant to what we do, but it is bundled as part of this exemption. Our case is electricity. Charges for electricity used exclusively at a location to operate machinery used to manufacture, process, compound, etc. Materials may be exempt from sales tax. So the exemption speaks specifically to the usage of electricity and machinery. In the event that the usage of electricity and the machinery is greater than 50% of the usage through a particular meter, the owner may declare an exemption. And there are two forms of the exemption. If the usage is between 50 and 75% of the total usage, so again, the usage in the machinery is between 50 and 75%, the owner can determine that. We obviously would not know that information. They may declare an exemption of 50% of the sales tax. If the machinery uses more than 75% of the electricity through a particular meter, the owner may declare 100% exemption. And we have some of these cases in town.
So it's up to them to tell us how much of the total usage is for the machinery?
Yes, sir.
And do they verify that how? They just tell us that, or do they have to sign an affidavit, or what do they do?
It actually is in that written certification form. There's an opportunity to mark 50 to 75%, 75 to 100%. It's based on their assessment of the operation.
It's the honor system.
Okay.
Actually, I will pause and speak to that because this particular category and the next category I'm going to speak to is the burden of the owner to properly take that exemption. The Department of Revenue is very explicit in its rules that says the utility is obligated to charge the tax. If an exemption is provided by an owner to the utility, then the Department of Revenue will look to the owner to make sure that is correct. So the utility no longer has the burden of collecting the sales tax. But up until that point, the utility does have that burden. So the owner wants to be very careful in their certification and make sure that in fact it's true. And we find in cases owners are very deliberate in the way they do it. They want to make sure they understand their operation. They want to make sure they understand the metering. And I can cite numerous examples where that happens. And we have cases which would be very difficult to discern, but they are able to, they are only able to take a 50% exemption as opposed to 100%. So there's some analysis that goes into it by the customer to determine what happens. Now, as you might imagine, the manufacturing element, that's a pretty sophisticated industry. There's not a plethora of manufacturers in town, but it does include things other than widget making. So when we talk about manufacturing, I know personally you could blame me for this. You think of like widget making, you make things, but it includes processing, recycling processing. So I can name a particular business that we're probably familiar with, Marpan Recycling. That's included in this group. There's a discrete list of SIC codes in the Department of Revenue's rules that customers can refer to determine whether or not the business falls into these particular manufacturing categories. That would be step one. Step two would be determining the amount of usage in the machinery used for the manufacturing and processing. And again, I think I mentioned this, but businesses then provide written certification of their exemption. The utility is obligated to keep that on file. Periodically, the Department of Revenue audits us as their collection agent to make sure we're properly assessing the tax, collecting the tax. And in the event we're not and an exemption has been provided, that we have proper documentation. And this discussion has given us the opportunity to re-review that to make sure that we're doing it properly. Of course, anytime you kind of dust off a process that's happening, you want to make sure you're doing it correctly, and we are doing it correctly. At the time of the last audit, it was clean. There was no issue found by the Department of Revenue, and I find that still to be the case today.
Commissioner Miller?
Reese, now I need to make sure I'm clear on this. We're still talking about a conversation that's going on between the customer and the Department of Revenue, right? And that they would be communicating with the Department of Revenue as to what percentage of their electricity was used for machinery and so on. And then they would get a certificate from the Department of Revenue that they would bring to you that says, give this person a 50% deduction or a 75% deduction. Is that correct?
It is a little bit, you have three parties in the mix. We're the collection agent, so we're not making any determinations. The Department of Revenue has a set of guidelines that the owner would review. The Department of Revenue would not weigh into, now they may audit after the fact and review it, but they would not weigh in and provide guidance, I don't believe, on the percentage of usage. They would say, here are our guidelines. The owner, you can make that determination, and then if you conclude that, you can provide this to your utility, and then we're the recipient of that information. We collect it, record it, and then categorize that customer as exempt. That's kind of the flow of the process. The third category I mentioned before would be the sale of electricity and natural gas used exclusively for residential purposes but billed to commercial accounts. And you may find these situations in apartments, condominiums, RV parks, places where you think of residential activity, but it's under an umbrella of commercial operation. So our utility tariffs, we would bill those customers as commercial, and that would be appropriate. To the extent that the owner can demonstrate that all of the usage behind a particular meter, and again, this is meter-centric, behind a particular meter is used exclusively for residential purpose, they can claim an exemption. Well, metering is not typically configured in a way that's based on sales tax. It's more based rather on the facility itself, the operations of the account, and the physical characteristics of the location. But it is possible, and in fact, we see many, many times in our system where a customer can say, this meter serves only residential usage. This issue, as I understand, was discussed with the Department of Revenue many years ago now, probably 25 years ago, and it really was an extension of the discussion of residential customers. Households don't pay sales tax, and I have a similar use. An example might be a pool light or the lighting around the pool, things that are used by the residents of a particular apartment, condominium, or RV park, and therefore it shouldn't be taxable. So the owner has the opportunity to determine whether or not that's the case. Is the only usage behind this particular meter, and oftentimes what we'll find is it'll be one of many meters. There may be 10 meters at a particular location, but one of the meters qualifies, or some subset of that 10 qualifies, and that business goes through and evaluates that, and we have examples of that throughout our system. In fact,
Mr. Mayor, quick question on this particular piece, because I think if I understood Dr. Jackson's concern earlier was with regard to his trailer park. Of the units that are in the trailer park, are any of them currently under this exemption?
Actually, this is a good question. It kind of goes to the owner's review of the situation in terms of the meters that are there, the usage, and maybe circumstances changing over time. In the case of the RV park, actually in 2004, there was an exemption for 4, and there's a little over 10 meters. I don't remember the exact number of meters, but there's a number of meters at the location, and it was concluded that 4 should be exempt. The owner concluded that 4 should be exempt and provided us written certification.
Just to clarify, so I understand the fact pattern, was the owner Dr. Jackson, or was it a different owner?
As I understand, the owner was Dr. Jackson. Now, we interacted with a local tax consultant on the issue as I look back at the file. Dr. Jackson, I believe, was owner of record, but we were interacting with an agent on his behalf. In that case, 4 of the meters, so not all of them, but 4 of them were declared to be tax exempt. So they met the standard of the Department of Revenue's rules. That information was provided to us. At the time, in fact, it was stated in the transmittal from the accountant that they thought a few more may be exempt, but they weren't certain and weren't comfortable taking that exemption. And that kind of made sense. Actually, I think it would be consistent with the way other customers would review it. And if they're not certain, because again, the rules provide some guidance, they're not crystal clear and these situations are confusing, the customer only wants to take advantage of those that are in fact exempt. So 4 were declared to be exempt. They remain exempt today.
So an assessment was done on all of the properties at that time in 2004, almost 10 years ago, to determine whether or not they would be exempt?
Yes, sir.
Got it.
And clearly circumstances change, and we don't know the nature of those circumstances. And another review was done on behalf of Dr. Jackson by a different consultant. It wasn't the same consultant. And they've declared a few more of the meters to be tax exempt. Things happen. Times change. Meters can be added. Services can be changed. I don't find that highly unusual. I find that as businesses evolve, things change. And so clearly that business was involved in the exemption. It would be one of the many on the list that we would have exempt. What we find in reviewing our records is about 5,300 of our commercial meters, and that's how we count our customers, have declared an exemption. We have 14,000 business meters. So a very high percentage of our customers have declared this. And as you look at the list, it's a pretty good cross-section of our customers, ranging from credit unions to charitable organizations to manufacturers to many apartments on the list. And so everybody I've described of the various categories, you'll find a pretty healthy list of customers.
What's our total percentage of sales tax exempt customers in the utility?
It's approximately 40%.
So 40% of all the customers that are in the electric utility don't pay sales tax.
Commercial.
Commercial.
Right, commercial.
Yes, sir.
That are eligible
No
for
residential customers and 40% of the commercial customers.
On certain meters.
With it, as you can, we count customers by meters, and so it's 40% approximately.
So we're hardly keeping it a secret.
It's pretty well known at that point. Now, and I'll come back to those things that we look at and how can we make sure customers, if circumstances change and things happen, make sure we effectively communicate that. Again, what we find is that these exemptions are typically taken on the front side of the account sign-up. So as customers come in, they establish their account, and that declaration is made, and we can tell from the customers list of customers we have that it's known among our customer base. That's not to say people don't know, of course. I want to hit real briefly on refunds because that is an element of it. So in the event that circumstances change and the customer has not declared the exemption but has been exempt based on the circumstances for some time, they may ask for a refund. The refund is from the Department of Revenue. It's not from the City of Tallahassee. But as the collection agent on behalf of the Department of Revenue, the Department of Revenue has been very clear and says, in our case, the city, the utility, may issue a refund on its behalf. And what that means is we issue the refund and then we turn around and seek the reimbursement from the Department of Revenue. We have found that practice to be customer friendly because it's just an easier transaction. The customer already has a relationship with us. They have an account established. We provide the refund by way of the account and it can be handled very quickly and easily. And then we then move to the Department of Revenue and net it out of our transaction for the next month. So we have done that. The period of time that the Department of Revenue limits the refunds is 36 months. So if the situation has existed up to 36 months, the refund can be granted. Then, of course, the exemption is provided moving forward.
But Reese, just to, because this is, I wasn't here for last week's presentation. I only heard it in a one-on-one meeting with Dr. Jackson. You're saying that we as a city utility have no financial interest whatsoever in, one, keeping this a secret, but two, in the money, because it sounds to me like you're describing a pass-through. The State Department of Revenue actually conducts the refund. We've made it our practice to do the refund on the front end in an effort to be more customer friendly. Mm-hmm. So they're not, basically hanging out there, but that the state statute defines how far back you can go to conduct that refund.
Yes, sir. And I think the important points here are that we're the collection agent for the Department of Revenue. And we want to support our customers in any way we can that they can take advantage of exemptions. And we know that many of our customers are. To the extent we collect the tax, we remit it to the Department of Revenue. There's no filtering of that money. It goes completely as a pass-through to the Department of Revenue. It is not the City of Tallahassee's money. In fact, this is a very serious matter, and it's a very serious obligation by the City of Tallahassee to collect and remit these monies. It is audited periodically, and I can tell you, it's not a comfortable feeling to be audited. I've been part of that audit, and you kind of hold your breath a little bit because you know you put everything in place properly, but God forbid you didn't. And the way it works is the burden is the City of Tallahassee's. If we did not collect the tax, if we did not keep proper documentation, even though the customer was sales tax exempt, it's our obligation to then pay that. And then the Department of Revenue simply puts the bill to us, and then we would be obligated to pay it. So we want to make sure that the process is robust enough and well documented that the City of Tallahassee has collected the taxes properly as the collection agent. And then we want to support our customers to the extent they can take advantage of the tax exemption and do it properly. We don't want them to be at risk. But again, we're in between the equation, the Department of Revenue and the customer, because we're acting on their behalf. And that's the way it works.
Reese.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you, on this refund issue of 3 years, is that a typical industry standard for utilities to provide refunds?
This is a taxing rule by the Department of Revenue, and it's applicable to all. I believe this extends beyond, I know this extends beyond utilities. This is a sales tax issue. So the sales tax discussion really is no different than the sales tax that we all pay when we go to our favorite retailer and buy something. It's the obligation of that retailer to collect sales tax and remit it. Now, I'm certain they're not giving refunds. That documentation, that relationship's different. But the 3 years is a Department of Revenue rule as it relates to sales tax.
What I was trying to get at has been my experience that in the utility industry, period, if there is a refund to be given, it's restricted to 3 years no matter what the circumstances are.
In terms of this, in this application, this is the rule, yes, sir. We want to certainly take the opportunity as items are brought to our attention and we're made aware of things that maybe we could do things different or better. Or maybe there's somebody that circumstances have changed that had reasonable knowledge that a program existed, but for whatever reason, that didn't work out. And the first thing that came to my mind, and we've reached out and I wanted to share with you a few things that we want to take action on to make sure that customers are taking advantage of this, is we're a member, and again, I've described 3 exemptions, and 2 of them in particular are very narrow exemptions. They're for a very specific group of customers, manufacturers, and residential type businesses. And obviously those are subsets of our community and our community business, and only in those specific scenarios I described, even within those segments, are they exempt. So we want to properly communicate it. And so we're a member of the Capital City Apartment Association, and we participate in their regular meetings and talk about a number of items and present on a regular basis items that we think may be relevant to them that's part of our business. We have a strong relationship. And I've asked our point person to reach out to their chair, and that has already happened, to make sure this topic can be discussed at the next meeting, because we know those customers of apartments and condominiums, and they may be part of that association, they can take advantage of this. Now, I can tell you, I've reviewed the list of customers that have taken advantage of it, and it's a long list. And it's many, 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 many of the members. And I can't tell you if any of them are not taking advantage of it, but by the chance that some of them are not, we think that's a good form and things like that. They're good to do. And we're certainly open to that kind of idea. And we also know that the Department of Revenue sets the rules. The rules are lengthy. I think what I've just described is brief, but the rules are much more lengthy than I've described. We want to provide a link to those rules by way of our utility page. To the extent anybody's trying to determine whether or not they're tax exempt, that's the best resource that a customer can assess or access rather, is look at the rules, see if they think they qualify. Again, it's to certain segments of our customer base. And then also make sure we reinforce at the time of intake. We know that's what's happening today. At the time of intake, customers are making this declaration. Reinforce the idea. If you're exempt, please tell us now. We'll get it correct moving forward from this point forward, and you'll be able to take advantage of it. We'll be able to document it. It's the best time to take advantage of that exemption.
What are other utilities in the state do? Are we doing something different, or what are the other utilities doing as far as letting their customers know? Or
other utilities, no one's reaching out to their customers because they don't know. When I say that, as I understand from our industry expert, we take counsel and guidance on this issue from Florida Municipal Electric Association that has a co-counsel through the Florida Municipal Power Association as well, that actually has produced a very comprehensive document, a very good guidance document for its utilities. And we followed that direction. And that direction is commercial sales are taxable. If the customer provides you with an exemption, they're exempt, and here are all the things that you should do with it. The time of intake is probably where that transaction is going to happen. It's very difficult for me to reach out to you and determine whether you're exempt. So our practice reflects the practice around the state. It may be there's reference on websites to the Department of Revenue rules or a summary of those rules. We're going to add that link, of course. But our practice is consistent with the rest of the industry and how this is carried out around Florida.
Okay. Is that it?
Thank you.
That is it. That is very, very good, very, very interesting and thorough. I think that explains everything, and I hope those who are listening will listen carefully and understand that the city of Tallahassee has not done anything inappropriate with regards to the sales tax issue. I think it's clear to note as well that this fundamentally is controlled by the Department of Revenue. They are in charge. We're just acting as a conduit to collect sales taxes, as any vendor, no matter what businesses they're in, if they're obligated to collect their sales tax, they're obligated to remit it. If they don't remit their sales tax, then somebody could be, conceivably can be accused of theft. So it is very important for vendors who collect these sales taxes to do that. But that's the Department of Revenue's responsibility. That is not the tax collector in this sense is the city of Tallahassee's responsibility. This is the Department of Revenue, and they do have individuals who go out and, as I understand, and check on these businesses to determine whether or not they are qualified for the tax exemption. So anyway, I'm glad that's, and there are penalties. If there are penalties, certainly they can shut down your business. They can penalize you. There are penalties if you don't remit the sales tax in accordance with the Department of Revenue's rules. That's the way it is. Commissioner.
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, since Mr. Jackson mentioned my name, here, let's first of all frame this overall. The problem with our tax code in the state of Florida today is that we have sales tax exemption that make it look like Swiss cheese. So anybody who can afford their first lobbyist goes to the legislature and they get a sales tax exemption. So while you may pay sales tax on dog food, they don't pay sales tax on ostrich food. And if you pay sales tax on event tickets, they don't pay sales tax on skyboxes. And you may pay sales tax if you put a new car engine in, you don't pay sales tax on a jet engine. So why is that? Because lobbyists get it done in the legislature on behalf of industries. Well, we don't get to make those decisions here. Obviously, in this, as you just heard from Mr. Goad, the city is a collection agent only. None of the money goes to the city of Tallahassee. It goes to, except whatever sales tax comes back on extra pennies. I mean, it is collected only from the city of Tallahassee and sent to the state Department of Revenue. We remit it directly there. 40% of our commercial customers are currently exempt in one shape or fashion or another. So they have obviously gotten the word on that and are taking advantage of that. The process is that you have to apply for it, fill out an affidavit. We go the extra step to say, if you are sales tax exempt and that expires within the 5-year period, at the end of the 5-year period, we notify you that it has expired. We go the extra step to say, if it turns out that you were sales tax exempt and you had not applied for it, that the refund that you will get for the 3 years that is paid for the city will front. And then, so it goes directly to the customer without delay, and then asks the state for the dollars. The problem I have, Mr. Jackson, is that that's not what you came up here with. You came up here with a sheet of paper that said, city is stealing money. Exactly. And you said it was a scheme by the people at the highest levels to defraud the taxpayers. Well, that's obviously just a lie. That's a lie. So we shouldn't, sugarcoat that any. That is not true. There was not a scheme by the people at the top levels of the city to steal money from citizens. First of all, we know that they're not stealing money. Second of all, the money didn't go to them. It went to the state. What occurred is that, like you said, a company came to you and said they would save you money if you gave them half of the savings. They found out that you were eligible for one of these exemptions that you hadn't figured out on your own. Then you applied and got the money back. Well, I'm sorry that you didn't know. We want to try to fix that for you the best we can, and that's why we gave you your rebate for the 3 years right away. So rather than, if you'd have come up to the podium the first day and say, look, I had to pay this, I think there's better ways that we can let people know. Can you all put it on your website? Can you reach out to the homeowners, to the apartment owners? Can you reach out to other people that are similarly situated like I am? Can you do a utility stuffer? My answer is yes. Thank you so much for bringing that so we can let everybody know. The only thing I object to is the National Enquirer slash and burn style of politics of we're going to condemn you that you are obviously horrible, horrible people that are attempting to steal money from citizens and taking candy from babies and knocking walkers out from our elderly and doing everything else horrible. And by the way, this is my rebate issue. So in the future, thank you for coming forward with the issue. I hope you come forward with more. Anytime that you stand in that well with something positive and constructive, you will hear a receptive audience in me, and we'll try our best to be good stewards of the tax dollars. And I think of all the time that we have spent on this, Mr. Goode, in your department. Thank you for the time that has been spent there when you could have been doing other things. But I think the report says we've been doing just right. Thank you.
Wait. 10,000 people that don't know what's going on. That's my only concern.
And I don't mind. Yeah, and listen.
Commissioner.
Sure, I know I'm not going to do it back and forth, but Mr. Mayor, I would tell you I'm absolutely in favor of, if there's people that don't know, we want to let them know. But all we have to do is have any citizen come forward and say, here's something we would like to get out to the public, and if it's a valid point, we want to get it out. That's what we're doing.
We don't want to have this kind of exchange with the audience. They have an opportunity to speak. Commissioner Middleton.
To that point, though, I wanted to just make sure that I understand from staff, you're planning on putting this information on the website, you're meeting with the apartment owners, and you're also going to include in the insert that goes in with the electric bills, both emailing and both online and by snail mail. You're going to be including information to let people know about this. And I don't know whether you're going to mail this out to everybody. You might as well. I mean, it sounds like it would be
Let me respond to that, Reese. We're putting together a plan right now. I don't want by virtue of what you've said, something to be left out and Dr. Jackson come back and say that you said this and we didn't do that.
All right.
We are putting together a plan, and we absolutely want to let all of our customers know. We don't want any customer who is actually eligible for an exemption from the state or anybody else to not be able to get that because they don't know. So we're going to put out some information that makes sure that they do know. And we're going to work from the beginning with new customers to let them know as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I would like to say that I have been impressed with the staff response on this. I mean, within days of our last meeting, we had emails explaining this to us, and then it was put on the immediate next agenda. You've got your program going, so thank you for bringing it up. I think that, I'm pleased with staff response.
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Mayor,
think that horse is dead. Go ahead.
we're on target issue updates, and we have 1, 2, 3. Long-range planning with Commissioner Miller, economic development by you, Mr. Mayor, and innovation and engagement, Commissioner Gillum.
Well, I know you've all been waiting with bated breath to find out what we did about the noise ordinance. Actually, we met on March 26th, Commissioner Maddox and I did, with the long-range target issue committee. Hilda Say from our legal office came with Karen Jumonville from Growth Management and Major Johnson from the police department, all to discuss the draft, and we had an extensive discussion of the entire draft. The bottom line, though, was that staff was directed to clarify that what less restrictive is, to strike all references to an outdoor amplification permit. That means that if your neighbor if you're going to have a barbecue in the backyard, you don't have to actually go and get a permit. Change the daytime start time from 7 to 8, and to be more specific and precise about clarifying sound measurements and providing a little higher noise levels, because we're afraid we're going to be illegal out of the box, and clarify the special exemption entertainment areas, and this will come back to us in about a week on the 24th. The second item that we addressed was a walk-friendly community application. And Cherie Bryant from the Planning Department came in to explain why the city actually does apply for such a designation, the purpose being to recognize a city's commitment to improve walkability and pedestrian safety in the community. With that, that was the end of it, and we'll be back with another report after our next meeting. Commissioner Maddox, do you need to add anything to that?
Yeah, well put, Commissioner Miller. The noise ordinance is a careful balance between realizing that a city is urban by definition, and there will be urban noise in an urban environment, and making sure that if we have unreasonable, which we do in several areas of the city, unreasonable events that hurt the quality of life of the surrounding areas, we can address it. We'll have the vehicle to be able to address it.
The Economic Development Target Issue Committee, we met on March 27th and was given an update on several development projects and activities along Gaines Street. Will Butler, who was a consultant in this whole matter, was at the meeting and provided a lot of information regarding the number of private developments that are on the way or will be on the way. And some of those projects discussed were College Town, which is slated for completion in June of this year. This was a catalyst project, and then there was a catalyst project, I'm sorry, and then 601 Copeland, which are also scheduled for completion in 2013. North American Properties, which had its groundbreaking at the Sally site, we all were there on March 21st, will be building 3 projects along the Gaines Street corridor. Collectively, this is what's really important about this. Collectively, these projects represent $130 million in private investment in Gaines Street and are providing hundreds of construction jobs and will also have a number of permanent jobs. Will Butler also announced that the College Town development had purchased the Duraprint building. We all know where that is on Woodward Street or Wood Avenue, and that building will be renovated and leased to Urban Outfitters. And Urban Outfitters, we all know, is a national specialty retailer, and their decision to put a store on Gaines Street should make the area attractive to other national retailers and entertainment venues that cater to young adults, some old adults too. The committee also briefed us on the construction of a roadway between Railroad Avenue and Stone Valley, which will serve as a rear access road for the new developments along the south side of Gaines Street and provide bicycle access. There was also a discussion of the Cold Chute Park stormwater facility, which is under construction, and the role of this facility will play in providing stormwater management for new construction on Gaines Street. The information presented was obviously useful. You can see that from what we're saying, and the committee recommended the staff scheduled to make a similar presentation to the full commission at the appropriate time. It really was an outstanding presentation of what's happening. We have reached the point of critical mass and Will Butler talks about this all the time, when you get enough developers in this area, we've reached that point of critical mass where people now really understand the significance of what is happening on Gaines Street. And I think this commission, the city commission, needs to be commended because, again and again, but for the infrastructure that we decided to put it on in Gaines Street, this probably would never have happened. We decided to do that at the city, and now look at Gaines Street and what it's going to be. And I think this is one of those projects, one of those areas that really we can all be proud of. Thank you. Next. Yes.
We did have an excellent presentation, but and the mayor has told you the dollar total, that $10 million investment in the road, and what that's led to investment from private sector. But the actual value down there is going to be upwards of probably $250 to $300 million. So there's definitely a different tax situation as far as property taxes. The reason I mention that is that increase goes into the CRA for reinvestment in the entire area, the Frenchtown Southside CRA. So that's going to allow the CRA to actually go in with lighting and sidewalks and all sorts of good things for the entire Frenchtown Southside area, just based on the projects over on Gaines Street.
Yeah, it's really something. Very good decision on all of our parts. Next time. Next. Anybody else? There's one more.
Commissioner Gillum has
Is it mine? Okay, great. First, I want to acknowledge two members from leadership Tallahassee, who are here. I assume y'all are completing your assignment to attend a meeting. Adriana Sakula, is that right? All right. And of course, Miss Melanie Lee, I want to see you in IKEA. And some of you all may know that Commissioner Miller is also a member of the current class. So,
and I am remiss at not having recognized you myself, but I'm delighted to see both of you.
A quick report on the Innovation and Engagement Target Issue Committee, of which Commissioner Ziffer and myself serve. The Commission participated today in the launch of a new application, I'm sorry?
Sweet.
Yeah, Sweet application, Digitally. And I really do encourage not only city employees, but anybody who's watching or anybody in the audience to go to either Google Apps or the regular App Store and download Digitally, D-I-G-I Tally, which is an application that we should all stop to acknowledge and appreciate Raul Lavin and Sabrina Holloman, and specifically Jim Van Riper. I'm not sure if Jim's in the room, but Jim really did the tough work of having to develop this application. And this is our effort to make it much easier for citizens to engage with government. And you can use it not only to make complaints, and I would just go and test one out, but if you're walking on the sidewalk, maybe your pet, and you come across a pothole, take a picture, and as you all know, with smartphones, they can quickly GPS you. It'll complete the address log for where you're located. You write a quick description of what the problem is and send it in. One of the features that I love best about this application is you can actually follow the progress. Once you've made the complaint, has it been received? Has it been sent? Was it acknowledged? What's the status of it? Is it under development? And then when it's complete. We probably, Mr. Mayor, I know you like to set records, but I assume we're probably one of the earlier adopters within the local government community around the nation with this technology. And so go to your app stores and download that application. We also received at our last, yeah, please.
I think the only one other city that we know has this is Philadelphia, right? And they are nowhere near have utilized this system the way we're utilizing it. And we're always in the forefront of new technology, and we need to be. We can, because we can provide this to our citizens, and they can operate, and we can operate this government more efficiently and effectively and cheaply. That's the whole point of all of this.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayor, you're right on with regard to the number of options that are available there. You can go there.
Go ahead.
If you want a pet, dog, cat, whatever, and you can see the picture, a narrative about the pet, and complete that transaction right there. Pay your utility bill if you need to. Check it out. I mean, I think people will find it real useful, and it's so timely for this time. Most of us know that we use our cell phone, our mobile phones for almost everything, to get places, to make orders, to whatever. So it only makes sense that this government would be flexible enough to now accept business transactions via smartphones. We also received a presentation from Wendy Halleck and Rebecca Kelly. Some of you all will remember their involvement on a number of things, but most namely the food truck court that we just opened here in downtown. And they came to us to share an idea that they had around how it is we make Lake Ella a place that's more frequented by members of our community. One of the suggestions that they had, and I'll put this out only as a suggestion, I think staff, there'll be a lot of vetting through these suggestions, but whether or not you can actually put, remote boats inside Lake Ella and conduct, racing contests, not motor boats, of course. These are these little floating devices, toy devices, with the idea that if you can bring people down there, stuff for people to do with their families, with their kids, utilize the park not only for exercise, and it's heavily utilized for that during the daytime. They also offered some suggestions on possibly making the park more friendly to food trucks. Dee and his staff at Parks and Recreation were very receptive to this idea, and I believe are making preparations for the end of April, Commissioner Ziffer, beginning of May, to start permitting food trucks to now come down into the Lake Ella Park area throughout the day and also on weekends. And we think that'll just increase the amount of foot traffic in that area, especially with more people living in the area, becoming more walkable and accessible in that way. We heard from the Night Creative Communities Initiative, Elevate project, which the group surveyed citizens and business owners in Lake Ella to help determine what they would like to see happen. And I really love the fact that they engaged members of the community in that area, people who patronize the park. I think over 500 people were surveyed as a part of this analysis. I would highly recommend that we all access that, because there was some interesting feedback that came back in that survey with regard to what they would like to see happen around Lake Ella to make it more kid-friendly, pet-friendly, pedestrian-friendly. Both groups are prioritizing their suggestions and are looking at funding opportunities that we can consider before taking additional action. I don't know if Dee is in the room. Dee and his staff were move right into action. In fact, I think he sent around to us a design of the new park, what do you call that, park signage that they were erecting to help better identify and brand Lake Ella. Commissioner Ziffer and I also participated in another Commissioners About Town, an initiative through the Innovation and Target Issue Committee. We did this one 2 weeks ago in the Frenchtown area. It was by far, up to this point, the most well-attended. Maybe 40 members of that community came during lunchtime. It was supposed to be an hour. And about an hour and 40 minutes into it, people were still talking. I wish I could say that it was all, glowing comments, but the truth is as we get out into the community, you hear a diversity of experiences, and it's great feedback for us. I know that our records department is working on the minutes from those. Matt Lutz is shaking his head back in the back of the room, are working on minutes so that we can all get a sense of what the feedback was. I think I would pay particular attention to some of the comments made about the homeless shelter and what impact that's having. Some of the crime concerns, particularly prostitution and other drug-related issues. And also they're thinking on the CRA and how it might be redesigned in a way that's more impactful and effective for the people who live in the Frenchtown area. I think it'll be instructive for our conversation with regard to the CRA strategic planning process. The Commissioners About Town, Brevard Street. Okay, project guidance form. We also produce, because we realize that with a title like Innovation and Engagement, which is so broad, you can find yourself having people bring a lot of different things to you, some which we can take action on and some which we can't. So we have created a form that citizens can complete and submit, and that'll help staff and it'll help us in prioritizing and in vetting through those projects. Commissioner Ziffer, I'll yield to you now if you have any additional updates to add.
No, I think you were very thorough. our going out and about town, I think, has been good for us. And it, as we get that information and pass it on to the rest of the commission, I think it'll be valuable for all of our colleagues to see. It wasn't all critical. There were also a lot of compliments, but clearly there's still work to be done in that area. And I'd look forward to you and I going back there very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have scheduled a follow-up to circle back and update the community on progress that's been made on the issues they raised. There was one item I did skip. Commissioners, this was one of yours. You want to mention the permitting for Fifth Avenue?
Go ahead.
Okay. So as you all know, we did complete that plaza in front of the Fifth Avenue Plaza, which is intended, you know, the facade that was done there, the brick, the effort to make it more pedestrian friendly. So we want to now get the word out that that space is now available for a very, very limited cost. I think it's maybe $30 or so, which is basically to pay for any electric utility that they may utilize. So you can host events there. And the way you permit that area is by going through the City Parks and Recs Department, who are in charge of leasing that area to anyone who's interested. And that was an idea that was brought to us by the merchants who are in the Midtown area. And that's it.
It's a lot.
It's fun.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Next item.
Mayor,
Unagenda speakers.
Unagenda speakers. We have 4 speakers. The first is Erwin Jackson, be followed by Carlos Ramirez.
Erwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. Mr. Marks, you've stated publicly your attorneys and friends have advised you that you should be simply thankful and keep quiet when sitting up on the dais. And I agree with their advice. Last week, you forced the public to listen to you for 15 minutes, blaming everyone else for your self-serving actions. I was willing to leave this issue to the FBI. However, the inaccuracies of your presentation forced me to come here tonight. Mr. Marks, you had an opportunity to explain why last week you lied to the public when stating that you contacted your law firm about the conflict you had with Honeywell. However, you stated under oath that no contact had you ever made. You could have explained why you never called your law firm to explore the conflict, even after directed by City Attorney Jim English. You could also had an opportunity to explain why you and your son were being paid by ADE, a city business partner. Instead, you chose to blame everyone. Mr. Marks, Bob Gabordi of the Tallahassee Democrat did not cause you to take the $900,000 from Honeywell. So attorneys, he simply reported the facts. Mr. Marks, Preston Scott of the Morning Show did not cause you to take money from city partner ADE for yourself and your son. He simply reported the facts. Mr. Marks, Andy Alcock with WCTV Television did not tell you to establish a consulting group, KMR Consulting, so you could take money from city contractors. He only reported the facts.
It's very difficult.
Mr. Marks, I never told you to use your office for your personal financial gain. I have only tried to expose your self-serving practices to the public. I believe I've had some success. A recent Tallahassee Democrat survey reported that 90% of the respondents do not want you to run for mayor. 50% of your own commission do not support you. Mr. Mayor, all is not lost. I want you to know that I want you to run for re-election. That will give you numerous opportunities to explain the self-serving actions that you have engaged in over the past several years. You can count on me to be there, to be actively involved, both with time and money, to ensure that the public will not again elect a politician who places his personal financial gain above the public interest. Thank you, sir.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying that I committed perjury?
As you well know,
are you saying that
as you well know, I'm not an attorney. I will say this.
Are you saying
you've done a number of things that you have engaged in actions that have benefited you and your family personally, and to me, that's wrong. Any other questions?
Yeah.
And I have nothing to gain here, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to gain. All I want is an honest mayor to run this city. Thank you so much. I appreciate your questions.
Mayor, the next speaker is Carlos Ramirez. He may have left. I don't see him. That means the next speaker will be Curtis Baines. Mr. Baines will be followed by Rebecca Sager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Curtis Baines, 1323 East Tennessee Street. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I've added the one, and you probably heard more than you want to hear about the sales tax exemption, but I want to tell you about my experience. I was not aware that I was eligible for it until the past couple of weeks, so I'd only just researched it the last couple of weeks, and when I called the utility department, I was referred to the Department of Revenue for a tax exemption statement, and the Department of Revenue referred me specifically to Section 12A-1.053 Florida Administrative Code, which I believe is the exemption we're talking about here, which deals with the electricity for common areas of apartment buildings and other residential facilities and a couple of other things. They also suggested that referred me to Form DR 97 to complete and send to the city, and it doesn't specifically deal with the 1.053 exemption, so you have to mark other and explain in there that this is an exempt transaction. It also helps if you've got a separate meter, because because it is limited to the exempt purposes. So you can't, excuse me, you can't use the common electricity and power for other purposes. Like if you have an office there, you can't use it for that. So I would refer that to you. That was my experience over the last couple of weeks, just for your information. The other thing that I wanted to comment on, and then again, this is just informational purposes only. If you had had a little more stamina last night at the joint meeting, you could have heard me comment on this to the county commission again. But it had to do with the county's sewer target area priorities. In particular, the 2030 master sewer plan has, I think, 9 different project target areas in there. And the county in 2005 identified 3 of those projects for priority: Woodville, Harbinwood, and Centerville Trace. And in 2009, the county created the Primary Springs Protection Zone. I believe that by creating the Primary Springs Protection Zone, they made obsolete their other priority list. And what I have been trying to get them to do is to replace Harbinwood and Centerville Trace with the Lake Munson target area, which I call the Oak Ridge target area, to be more consistent with the Oak Ridge sector plan, which deals with that area of town. And since part of the city is in that Oak Ridge section area, I think you ought to be aware of that as well. And so I'm passing that along. I'm not asking for any action. I'm just, trying to keep you informed as to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez, I think, is here, and he'll be next, and then we'll have Ms. Seeger speak.
Who's the next speaker?
Mr. Ramirez is next speaker.
All right, counting 3 minutes, right? My name is Carlos Ramirez. I reside at 4417 Westover Drive, 32303. The grace and the peace of Christ be with you and everybody here, as well as the listeners at home. I want to help you guys do a little. I'm actually urging you to go do some research, and so that you may understand some of the things that are going on within our country and why it is that there are some individuals worldwide that want to just take away your guns, so that ultimately they can just kill you and you won't be able to defend yourself. JFK, 7 days prior to his death, said, "There is a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman, and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, I intend to expose this plot." Mao Zedong said, "The political power grows out of the barrel of the gun." And if you look at history, Germany, which actually was funded by Hitler, Hitler was funded by Rockefellers and others within the banking system. Learn some more at Invisible Empire. That's a YouTube video. There's a plan in place by United Nations to ultimately deprive you of your property, and they don't want you to have rights to property, and they even want to depopulate the world. Mr. Bill Gates, in a conference 3 years ago, February 2010, he said, "We will depopulate the world through vaccination." I don't know you, but I'm interested in trying to keep your family and mine safe. They're trying to depopulate. How are they going to do that? Well, through vaccinations, he says. When you look around, there's all kinds of signs about vaccinations. We also have a higher rate of autism, and it's actually linked to vaccination. But the World Health Organization, which is actually connected to the Rockefeller Foundation, says, oh no, that's not true. But the Rockefeller Foundation actually helped Hitler. They said, here's the fluoride, put it in the water. Learn some more. Go to places like Agenda21today.com, Maafa21, detailing the black genocide that I would like to see defunded in this country, MAAFA21. Go to No Guns for Negroes. It's several people being interviewed there that actually are part of an entity called CORE, which MLK Jr. helped to put together. Go to The Beautiful Truth. We're talking about health. There's a big sign out the side. Beautiful Truth is a documentary detailing some wonderful things about how to get healed without the chemotherapy.
Excuse me, your time's expired.
Very well. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker is Rebecca Seeger, and that's the final speaker, Mayor.
Good afternoon. I'm Rebecca Sager, 1017 Cherokee Drive here in Tallahassee. I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, representing over 150 members. The League of Women Voters of Tallahassee was hoping today to present a resolution to you showing the support of the full commission and the city for the Fixed Gun Checks Act that is moving its way through the U.S. Congress as we speak. Since 1990, the League has advocated for gun control on the national level. League positions are arrived at, by the way, through a process of diligent study, followed by consensus building that leads to a position. As a result, the League believes that the proliferation of handguns and semi-automatic assault weapons in the United States is a major health and safety threat to its citizens. In addition, the League supports licensing procedures for gun ownership by private citizens to include a waiting period for background check, personal identity verification, gun safety education, and annual license renewal. Now, the resolution that the Tallahassee League has been discussing with the city commissioners and the mayor over the last several weeks was drafted originally by Mayors Against Illegal Guns, MEG for short. The federal legislation, the Fixed Gun Checks Act, which the resolution endorses, has as its goal closing innumerable loopholes in current law that allow criminals to continue to acquire guns in the United States. So the League looks forward here in Tallahassee to continuing working with you, the Mayor Marks, and also all the commissioners here to bring the MEG resolution to the floor of this chamber for a vote so that we can do something locally about what otherwise is a national issue, and many of us feel powerless to affect change. We can do something here in Tallahassee. This is our vehicle. I'm deeply concerned today that despite placing the resolution on the agenda per established rules for public notice, a number of complaints about that procedure apparently persuaded the mayor to pull the item from the agenda, a move that, while perhaps not entirely unprecedented, is nevertheless fairly unusual. The League's concern is that consideration of this resolution has been pulled from the agenda at a very moment of that critical vote in the U.S. Senate on this very bill. And it may be very well that this very commission meeting today, when an affirmative vote, is when an affirmative vote by the City Commission on the resolution could have had its maximum impact. So, given that informed citizen engagement in government is the very reason for the League's existence, we look forward to working with you all to ensure that the voices of informed citizens are heard and not silenced at critical moments such as this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Quick comment, if I could, if there are no other speakers. I know it's easy to be triggered when you become the target of, and you know well what that feels like, having dealt with not only you, but your family and the city and the entire city of Tallahassee, not just the city staff and city family. So I know you know that the triggers probably will continue to come. And what I would encourage you to remember is that you, through a very lengthy process, were cleared of any ethical wrongdoing. And while that may not change the minds of some, that conclusion is finite, is conclusive, and I think that that issue is behind us. The other point I want to make is there is only one mayor at one time in this city, and that is you. And I want you to know that you have my full support in that role. And any statement to the contrary certainly isn't one from me and is not one that I have communicated.
I want to thank you very much, Commissioner. I really appreciate both of those comments. Both of those comments. So on the first one, it is very difficult for me to sit up here and hear the vitriol and the accusations and the lies coming out of from Irvin Jackson, especially when they involve my family. I think that's pretty, you know, I think that's something that I would never do. I have never done it, but obviously Mr. Jackson has no problem in doing that. And the right tribunals have spoken, including the Ethics Commission. None of the other agencies that he has sent information to have taken any action, and I will tell you they will not take any action because there's no action to take. So I'm comforted by the outcome and everything, but I knew that would be the outcome, as I said before. I am not comforted by, you know, the continuation of this and what it does to not only me, but to my family and to this commission and to this city. But it appears that Mr. Jackson is going to continue. I can't stop him. He has a right to speak, and I will defend his right to speak. But as I said many times before, the Constitution does not guarantee that what he says is true. So we will have to endure his lies and vitriol probably for a long time. But we will make this government work and do the things that we have, notwithstanding that kind of behavior. As I said before, despite what has happened over the past 2 years, we've done a very good job for the city, and we will continue to do that. On the second issue, I also thank you very much. I know there have been some things swirling around in our community, but I want to be your mayor, and I will be your mayor. And I intend to be that till the end of this term at least, and we'll have to determine what the future holds. But we have work to do. We have good things to do in this community. We have made your application that you presented to us earlier today was absolutely something that we need in this community. And we do not need distractions. They are not helpful for this community. But apparently, we're going to get more. And with that, I'll stop. Yes.
Another issue.
Are we in commissioner comments?
Mm-hmm.
We are.
We are, sharing of ideas.
Mr. Mayor, and because I've got a couple things I want to talk about, but first, we do have important things to do. And the last couple of years, we have started numerous projects, and several of them are starting to come to fruition and closure. And they are, quite frankly, amazing the way they have turned out. And over the next year or two or three, we have even more that will be coming to conclusion and will starting. All of us, and this was an amazing opening, which was Franklin Boulevard. I know for those that live on that road system, it seemed like forever, but for me, it almost seems like yesterday that we started that. And I have to give tremendous applause to our staff and to the staff of Blueprint 2000, and particularly Wayne Tedder, and also to the contractor, M Inc., for pulling off what is clearly an engineering feat in an area that always floods, and yet they built the new road system. And the neighborhood and the neighbors are thrilled with it. I think the people that I used it today, and I'd kind of forgotten about Franklin Boulevard, but I used it today. It was a great way to get around. And so I want to make that comment. So we do have important things to do, and we're not going to let anything stop us from doing those things.
We definitely won't let.
Which causes me to briefly discuss, if I could, to bring you up to date on a project you may have heard that I had been working on outside of the commission, but clearly as a city commissioner, I am also involved as a commissioner. It has to do with trying to identify some needs we have in the community, in the cultural community. You've identified me because of the different boards I sit on to kind of represent us when it comes to culture and the arts. And we still have a need in our community for more rehearsal space. We have a need to bring our arts community together, hopefully under one roof or as many as we can so that they can collaborate. We need more performance space. We need space for film. We need space for lectures, exhibit space. And so you may have heard that a group of us had gotten together and were looking at perhaps identifying Northwood Center and up to, there's 55,000 square feet there where the old Publix was. We're not talking about anything that's significant. But to identify that as a potential place for some of the elements that were in the Arts Exchange project that were down off Gaines Street that at one time we were very supportive. In fact, the city had provided the land for that project to be built on. We had brought in David Gilchrist, who is the architect that actually designed the Arts Exchange, worked on the Ruby Diamond project. We brought in the contractor that worked on the Ruby Diamond project, and they looked at the space and all agreed that it would be work for a black box theater, the height of the ceiling, the distance of the columns. We have also heard from numerous organizations, Shakespeare Festival, the Irish Repertory Theater, other organizations that are looking for space, that they'd be interested in going in there. Some of you probably are familiar that Mike Sheridan at one time had been talking about potentially having some space downtown. I've had a conversation with him. He's extremely supportive of us pursuing this and perhaps even supporting it financially at some point, which is very encouraging. We're at a point now where we have to determine what the cost is to build this out. I will tell you it is on no level whatsoever from what other discussions have been for performing arts space. This is probably only a venue of 300 to 500 seats. We also need to determine what the costs are to operate it. Clearly something that's very important where we need to have it to a point where hopefully it's self-sustaining. But there are some minor expenses involved. I've been speaking with the city manager about this for some time, and she has identified some sources for us to provide those minor expenses, and I just wanted to bring you up to date. This process, probably would say within 60 to 90 days, I can report back to you where we are. It's an amazing location because you are familiar with it. It's at the intersection of MLK Boulevard and Tharp Street. It's on 2 bus lines. It has high visibility from the street. It has 1,700 parking places in that mall. A very motivated landlord that is interested in trying to make this way possible any way they can. So I'm open to answer any questions you might have. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to elevate the arts to a place that they haven't been, try to get as many together under one roof so they can collaborate, so that people in this community can enjoy what we have to offer and not have to travel all around town to do it. Just a thought.
Anybody? Commissioner?
Question. As part of the Arts Exchange, wasn't there a half-penny sales tax, bed tax from the Tourist Development Council or not?
There is, and the county has pushed back a decision on what they'll do with that. It continues to go towards the Tourist Development Council and their marketing efforts. It is still out there. I believe they have a vote again around October or so to talk about what happens to that. I don't, quite frankly, I don't know if that'll be part of this discussion until we know what the cost is to build it out. And I'm going to be very clear, unless this is an extremely low cost, and it also is a place where it is just about self-sustaining, I don't see how this works. I think both of those will happen, but we won't know until we go a little bit further.
Thank you. Well, you're right. It has been a great week. You stole one of my thunders, which was the Franklin Boulevard opening, which we're all so excited about. And I just want to make sure everybody does know that Franklin Boulevard is open. You know, there's been discussion about the fact that it was 4 lanes down to 2, but I think when you go down there, you're going to find out that it's 4 lanes down to 3. They're turn lanes. So in fact, when you're in the moving lane, you don't have to actually stop and wait for somebody to turn. That's going to make it a lot less hazardous to drive. And then there's the fact that this is the end of decades and decades of flooding. I mean, a minor rainstorm could put everyone out because it is a major thoroughfare, and all of a sudden nobody can get back and forth to wherever they need to be. Major, major problem just because it rains, which it does do here periodically. I went over when the big storm came several weekends ago where we had rain up to like 10 to 14 inches, and there was, I was there I think on Tuesday after that, and there were not even puddles, so I thought that was pretty exciting. So everybody try out Franklin Avenue. Another one is that I wanted to invite everybody to speed date your local officials at the Village Square on Thursday night. You can go to the Village Square website and register. You have to register. Just make sure there's plenty of room for everybody. But you will get free pizza when you come, and you'll have the pleasure of not only sitting down with us and letting us know what you think, but also there are numerous other members of the community, other elected officials from all areas. So there's a list of that on the website too. And finally, I wanted to thank I didn't get a chance during the presentation, but I wanted to thank the electric department employees for doing a very dangerous job. I mean, I'm very proud of this award that they've gotten, but I wanted to recognize them for the fact that it is such a dangerous job to work with electrical wiring. This is something I try to avoid at all costs, and so I have a tremendous amount of respect for them. They go out in the worst kind of weather, when wires are down in the water, to try to make sure everybody's got power and we can all just flip our switch and everything's convenient for us. So kudos to them. And with that, I'll stop.
And I had one other thing, and I apologize to my colleagues. My customary closure: spay or neuter your cat or dog. You have to do it. It's important to our community. And now we have an app where you can, if you want a dog or cat,
yes,
go on there and check one out that already has been.
Commissioner. Yes, 2 things. One, on the Franklin Boulevard piece, we did get one great road. There was some concern from some of the folks who were down there with their kids and with pets during the grand opening about the need for flashing lights, particularly at the crossing where the opening was done. A little bit of a blind spot, and it's right when you come on and begin to accelerate. And so I would ask the manager if we could figure out whether or not this may be a place discussion. I'm not sure if it's blueprint or whether or not that's something we ought to look at. But
we'll check
a couple of people mentioned that coming off of Tennessee, the first road, crosswalk.
They also asked for, we have crosswalks at the lights, but then there are these other areas where you can cross, like right at Call Street, and they had asked for a crosswalk in the road.
Right. And then second, and I believe the manager has been keeping you all up to speed on this, but as you all know, as a liaison to the colleges and universities, Florida State has, of course, begun a conversation with us about the future of some of our land on Gain Street and a potential swap with some of their land on Cascades. And we did meet the city staff along with David Colburn from Florida State University with our lobbyists who Florida State requested that we go to the legislature and ask for some money to assist with possible relocation, possible demolition, so on and so forth. Our lobbyist was able to get a placeholder in the budget on the House side. Yep. He's not certain we're not sure what the final form this will come to. Clearly, we still have to bring back a proposal and an option from Florida State about what to do. But want you all to know that at least that we didn't want to miss the window this legislative session if there was going to be money involved in this transition. Ultimately, the cabinet will have to approve or through some legislative action any transfer that takes place. But we will hopefully bring back to you all, we'll be meeting again early next week with Florida State, and hopefully we'll have a proposal to bring to this commission for consideration in the future. I do know that there was some conversation maybe on the dais two meetings ago about the Civic Center site itself, which was intended for future build-out. Florida State, that point is not lost on them. They're very clear about their options on the Civic Center site, and not to get ahead of their own announcements, have some ideas about what they're going to do there. So know that both the Gain Street site as well as the Civic Center site is sort of part of this bigger discussion. Apologies in advance for being a little obfuscating on the details, but I think more will be known as we continue the negotiation.
Anybody, anything else?
Franklin Boulevard was wonderful. And I was proud. I'm a proud Leon High School graduate, and I'm proud to have the Leon band there, Go Big Red. And Billy Epting, the Leon principal, was there. And Leon had a tough week, or a couple of weeks. We had the passing of Price Thornall, who was a bright, outstanding young man, Leon High graduate, and tragically lost his life. And Jim Nettles, a former principal of Leon and was my assistant principal, passed as well. So I wanted to send out good thoughts and prayers to those families. And Franklin Boulevard was such a long time coming, and you know, 2 young men lost their lives there due to flooding. And then I can remember when I was in high school, there was a severe wreck caused by the lack of visibility because of the fences that were put up afterwards, after those young men lost their lives on the ditch. And Brian Duffy was the attorney that had the case and urged for the fences to come down. So that was a tragic part of our history, that ditch and that little piece of land that connects 2 very historic sites. And I'm glad to see a happy ending with it. And we know that perhaps no other tragedy will occur there. I wanted to commend the mayor for participating in the National Day of Service. It's glad to be out there with you.
That was great.
I serve on the board of the Elder Care Board, and the mayor came out to our day stay and called bingo numbers and was quite a hit among all the people there. I do want to say that Tom Coe took personal leave to be there. They provided him lunch when he walked in.
And remember Nelda?
Nelda, sure. She's cute. Then finally, the homeless veterans stand down. I had the great fortune to go out and be part of that. What an outstanding program. And this commission took a leap of faith to support that effort along with many other partners in our community. But you want to know what we should do about the homeless, that is a great example. They had over 200 homeless people that took part in the program. The court system was there, and volunteers were there from the court system. Susie Capello, Dan, if you're listening, he was there, Richard Jr., others. Judge Fleury came out and adjudicated cases. They adjudicated 75 cases there. You could get haircuts, showers, veterinarian care for your pets, job counseling, driver's licenses or IDs. You had just about everything that you could possibly think of that would help somebody transition from homelessness and to come out of the woods and go from there to having a shot at productivity. So I think it was outstanding. I hope we support it next year, and I'm hoping we can see more of those, not only just for veterans, but for just homeless in general.
Well, I can guarantee you as a veteran, we will support the stand down over and over and over again. I went out there as well, and it really is remarkable to see and how well we're received out there for what we've done. And they were very, very grateful for us for going out there. I guess 2 things. We know how to build roads. We should know how to build roads. And Franklin Boulevard is that. But I told you all before, I have one regret about that Franklin Boulevard.
No river.
Oh, don't do it.
No damn river, no.
Wait, before you adjourn, Mayor, I wasn't going to mention it in this forum, but I appreciate Commissioner Maddox honoring the Thornall family. Price was a mentee of mine for 2 years. And in fact, we were making preparation via text to catch up when he was on his way home, and tragically, was involved in an accident. But I do want to lift. I've gone to, unfortunately, too many funerals. His funeral was not standing room only at the huge Baptist church out Thomasville Road. There was a significant outpouring of this community from Molly and Mike Thornall, who, Molly's very involved in Leon High School Foundation, raised crazy money. Price, a young man who was beyond his years, just wise in so many ways, involved in Young Life, left Tallahassee to go to Ole Miss. I reviewed his application essays for the Trent Lott Scholarship. He was going to be spending the summer as an intern for Congressman Steve Sutherland, who he encountered at a restaurant here in Tallahassee and just walked up to him, introduced himself. And Ed Murray's son tells a story about, while he was sort of playing on his cell phone, trying not to look awkward, Price comes in and goes over and introduces himself to the Congress member and sets up his internship for the summer. Just a example of the courage and the strength of this young man. He loved his family, he loved his grandparents, loved fishing. Loved Young Life, loved his faith, loved his politics, very conservative. One time RJ and I had gone to Washington for the holiday party at the White House. Price texted me while I was there and said, "Can we catch up for lunch?" And I said, "Oh, I'm away in D.C., but I'll hit you up when I come back." And I met with him when I got back, and he said, "What were you in D.C. for?" And I'm a grown man, and I'm nervous to tell him I was at the White House because I knew he didn't like the politics of the current White House. He says, "Man, how cool. I guess the president's the president for all of us." And again, just an amazing person. But I have his family, and I hope we'll all have his family lifted in our prayers. Molly and Mike, this is their second child that they've lost. Yeah. And a lot of tragedy to visit one family. But they are surrounded by love, clearly, by evidence by the outpouring of support at his funeral. But if they're watching, prayers and love to their family.
With that, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
The state capital is going to be another capital for food trucks. And to the city of Tallahassee, I commend you for taking the leadership on this. To our city commission, thank you for what you're doing. And just short and sweet, if you build it, they will come. And I think that's what we want to underscore. And I'm glad that a lot of state workers will be able to come here. Hopefully, when we get their pay raise this year, they'll be able to bring those dollars down here to the food court truck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite up to the podium someone who knows all about food trucks, the Secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Did I get that right?
You did.
The distinguished Mr. Secretary Ken Lawson. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, how y'all doing? Hey, you know what? What matters here is location, location, location. We got the Capitol behind us, got a session going on, we got a bunch of hungry people. All right? But one thing these hungry people need to know is that food trucks are regulated just like any other restaurant. All right? They gotta get a license through my department. And we've been working with the food trucks. Hey, Rebecca, where are you?
Right here.
Come here, my partner. At my department, we've had a couple of food truck events, but it's great that we have a dedicated place in Tallahassee where entrepreneurs, small business people can make some money, feed the community, and send a message that we want to make a difference. So everybody, spend some money today, enjoy, but not just today, tomorrow and next week, right?
Absolutely.
All right, and they're safe too. Yo, thank you so much. Ma'am?
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, girl. Thank you, thank you.
I should tell you that this lot is going to be active 7 days a week, and so you're going to see a variety of food trucks out here. They can apply for a permit to come out through the city, and so we're real excited and we welcome them. I will tell you today's featured trucks are excited to have you. The first thing that we're going to do now is invite some members of the media as well as our distinguished guests over here to take the first official bite. If I can escort you down that way, please. We have a signature dish from each of the food trucks here today. So what I'd like to ask you guys to do is to pick a